This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fyodor III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. Today's guest is someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. He has been recognized as a rising star by Michigan super lawyers and named to the best lawyers one to watch list. He was a prosecuting attorney for Oakland County and a graduate of the National Institute for Trial Advocacy. He received his JD from the University of Toledo and his BA in Theater Arts from the University of Michigan. He is currently a partner at Dykema Gossett PLLC and the pastor of the Ark Church, Detroit. Ladies and gentlemen, the DDP welcomes back Boyd White III.
What up, though? B. White in the building. My brother, good to see you, man.
Welcome back. Thank you, sir, for coming back. We had Boyd on earlier, and then we had some technical issues, and we had to bring him back to re-record the podcast, and he took time out of his busy schedule to join us. Thank you, sir. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Well, you really brought me back because you didn't feed me the first time, and I dogged you so bad. But you love me so bad. You said so much. You said, I got to help my brother, so I'm going to bring him back with the right hospitality. And shout out to DDP. They came with the donuts today. They came with a new equipment, so I even had to change my clothes. You know what I'm saying? I had to upgrade what I was wearing because of this experience. So thank you, my brother. But really, back, seriously, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Brother, we found you to be a fascinating person in this city, and we definitely think yours is a story that needs to be shared.
Amen.
And you're currently a pastor of a church, but you grew up, your father was a pastor as well.
Right.
How did that influence you to open your own church?
It's fascinating. I would say that my dream, that starting a church was a dream that I had. And it wasn't necessarily because my dad was a pastor. It was more so a function of my own passion for ministry, my own passion for preaching, my own passion for making a difference in the world around me. And I would say that the experience I had with my father gave me the kind of information that I needed to do it correctly. So my dad was an itinerant minister, which means he traveled around the country preaching for years before he started his church. And my dad and my mom started a church in 1989. And it was a very small church. And my father did the best that he could to support the ministry, and my parents, rather, to grow the ministry. But it was a challenge. And I remember one day, I was around 15 or 16. The ministry was the farthest thing from my mind at 15. Imagine, I'm 15. I had to be 15 or 16. I might have been like 94, 95, something like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not thinking about preaching. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking about what a lot of young men are thinking about in Detroit at that time. And I was sitting with my dad at church, and no one was there yet. And he was sitting in the pulpit. And sometimes my dad would kind of stare off into the distance. And out of nowhere, he said, "I'm doing this for your ministry." And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about? You got me up in this little church on a Friday night for my ministry. Can I please go play basketball?" But as I got older, and as we talked about many times, when I really committed my life to following Jesus when I was in college, all those lessons started to come back. And I realized the value of what he did for me. I didn't even know what he gave me, the skill to start a vision, So even, and this is for those of you that are listening, even though something may seem like it's not working, look to the bigger picture. What am I learning from this? And I learned a lot, even as a young man with my dad, about starting a vision, maintaining a vision, building support for your vision. I learned it through perhaps what he didn't do as well as he wanted to do. I learned it because my dad was really ill. He was diabetic for those years. And so even though he was very gifted, my father was a very gifted preacher, his physical problems didn't allow him to maximize that. And to start a business, to start a vision, you need a lot of energy, So it was things I learned. So again, I would say I had the passion to do it, But my experience with my dad and my mother, that gave me the skill to understand how to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Playing into it, one of the things we didn't really touch on last time that after reevaluating some things that I wanted to touch on is how does your theater training play a role in your career?
So in terms of my career right now, in addition, as Fiota said earlier, in addition to being the pastor of a church, and the name of our church is the Ark Detroit, I'm also a lawyer, and I work at the Dykema firm, and I do most of my work in the area of automotive litigation for the most part. So I'm a trial lawyer. And my theater training has been very valuable in both worlds because it allowed me to hone my best skill, which is presentation. And it gave me the ability to diversify that skill. It gave me multiple ways to express that skill. And so I've always been a person who was proficient in speaking. When I was in high school, I won every speech contest you could win. I won thousands of dollars doing that. But that's all I knew how to do that. I just knew how to speak. Acting taught me how to present, how to tell a story in a way that's different than what you might find behind a pulpit every Sunday. And so I've been able to develop a style of preaching that is unique. It's very unique for what people may find in our community, and a style of lawyering that is very unique. When I go into the courtroom, I'm much different, not only because I'm a black lawyer, but because of the way I present my case. I'm much different than most of the lawyers that I'm dealing with. And that has given me a great advantage. My clients like to retain me because eventually they learn about what I can do in a courtroom and how I can tell a story and captivate a jury. I think people love to come to our church because of that same reason. So it's helped me immensely. I'm being really theoretical. To be very practical, theater helps you to know what to do with your hands, with your body. It makes you very aware of everything around you. For example, we learned in theater, for most people, when they get up on stage or they get up in front of people, one of the things they stop doing is breathing. Yeah. And you never know that. You don't understand that that's what's happening until things like this start happening. Your mouth goes dry. It's called cotton mouth. Speakers get that sometimes. Well, that's your adrenaline. Fight or flight is engaged to trying to take over because, you know, in terms of that moment, your mind is looking at this as encountering fear because sometimes people are afraid of the moment. And so the body reacts to it. Adrenaline starts to spike. And a lot of times, because of our nervousness, we're not breathing. And then your body tenses up, your knees lock. And all of that prevents you from being natural in the moment, you know? So just a very simple thing we learned as actors was to breathe, which is the most profound thing in the world. It's so simple, yet it's so profound, just the ability to breathe. So that's how it's helped me. I try to breathe, to keep breathing in every single moment. And not just in terms of stage, but in life. You know, breathing represents the ability to maintain one's center no matter what the situation is, you know. So I could go on, but yeah, that's how it's helped me, my brother.
So one of the things that struck me in researching you is that a theme that stood out to me is preparation. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of your work and effort, you have to be prepared.
Right.
You can't just walk into court and not know what's going on with the case.
Correct.
And not, know the law and make your arguments. You can't just walk up. You probably could just walk up, but you can't just walk into the pulpit and spit out a sermon without, making a few references in the Bible and things like that. So can you speak to our audience about the importance of preparation and the value of preparation?
I would love that. And I want to speak specifically to people in our community who consider themselves to be gifted and talented. Because very often, and that's everybody in reality, you should all know that you're gifted, you're talented, you have something that you were born to do. You have something that you do very easily. No one taught it to you. I was listening to a champion boxer the other day. She's a UFC fighter, in fact. She didn't start fighting until she was like 19 or 20. Okay. She went into the gym, into a kickboxing class to work out. And she threw a punch. And the coach was like, "Who taught you how to do that?" And she was like, Nobody. So she threw another punch. She was practicing. He said, no, who taught you how to punch? She was like, nobody. You showed me right in this second. But she had the ability to mimic what he was doing. She's gifted, you know? So the problem I found, though, with myself, and you knew me when I was younger, with people who perceive themselves to be very gifted, once you understand that, is that preparation is not very important, you know? And you think you can just go into every moment and just kind of wing it. And that may work at a certain level when you're dealing with people that you may be more talented than. It's not going to work, though, when you get to a level of excellence where everybody in that room is talented and everybody in that room is gifted. Then what are you going to do? Because at that point, the question becomes, are you prepared for that moment? So it's not just being gifted. It's not just being a good singer, not just being a good actor, not just being a good speaker. If you really want to maximize your craft, you have to embrace preparation. Now, that doesn't take away from the value of the gift at all. That is what's going to separate you. But if that gift is not prepared, then it's not relevant to the people who want to hire that gift. Preparation is as simple as being on time. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. You know, Theodis used to jump on me for years because I was late for everything. We had a boss whose name I won't mention. I won't even give his name on the airways. But one of the things he was right about was being on time. And I remember he told me, it was my first job working at Michigan. So Theodis and I worked together for my first job, in my first job after I graduated from the University of Michigan. And I would drive up from Detroit every day to go to work. But I was always late to this Monday meeting. I think it was like we had a Monday meeting, staff meeting that started at like 8 o'clock. I was late every day. And because in college, as a kid, you know, that was kind of the culture at Michigan. We were just, you know, you got 5 minutes to get to class, you know. If the teacher didn't arrive, and I think the rule was like a 10-minute rule, we could leave. I was still a college student with some of those same lackadaisical practices. And don't get me wrong, not everybody was like that. But I found a way at Michigan to survive with being lackadaisical, basically. Well, I got to working, and this particular boss was like, boy, if you're late to my meeting one more time, I'm going to fire you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I did my best to get on time to that meeting, I tell you that. And that was the beginning for me of an evolution to understand the value of being on time. And that speaks to preparation, because even, I don't care how great you are as a speaker, and that's my world, speaking, preaching, trying cases, if you're late, you're missing things. In my world as a lawyer, if you're late to court and the judge says you're supposed to be there at 8:30, that could be malpractice. Your case could be dismissed, you know? So preparation is extremely, extremely important, and I encourage everyone to embrace that, and that'll only make you better.
Yeah, you got to hone your craft. You can't just keep just showing up.
No.
You got to get there.
I mean, the question becomes, have you even shown up if you're not prepared? Because your best self is in preparation. Your best self is in preparation. If you come unprepared, you didn't show up. You didn't show up. Your best, the best Boyd, White, and Theodis, they're at home. You got to bring that person. And the only way you bring that person is you got to get that person ready. For those of you that have children, just imagine if you just brought your children everywhere and their eyes were messed, you know, crust all in their eyes, and you didn't brush your kids' teeth. And people are looking at that child, and that child is a reflection of you. You really left your child at home. You just brought this person out, and now people are like, what's wrong with you? And then you're like, well, that's not me. Well, that is you. You're like, well, it's not. Well, then why isn't it? Because I'm not ready. Well, why aren't you ready? You know? So if you want to be your true self in this generation, I want to tell my truth, then prepare. And I'm not saying it either like this preparation evangelist. I've been on the dark side of this. You know, I'm a person, you know, when I was in college, I could have easily had a 3.5. I was in the theater school, but I was late every time to every class, and that knocks your grade down, you know? So how much money have I given up in life because I'm late? And I just got to the place in my life where I had to stop doing that. And now people work for me. And that's why they can't ever put game over on me. Like, you know, every day it's an excuse. No, person, you was chilling at the crib for my 12:45 service. And you walking up in here at 12:43 every single week. I've done it. I know you. No, so don't get me on a tangent. My brother, this is what we do.
Well, I get it. One of the things that's come out to me is, you're head of a church now. You're partner in a law firm, and one of the things that I'm really proud of in you in this development is you're a leader. And I'm curious as to how you feel your leadership style has evolved over the years to where you are now.
It's funny. It's such a blessing to sit with people who've known you for years. But this is something I think about all the time. I've always been a leader. But I've not always been interested in the price that a leader must pay to be effective, to be respected, to be loved. I was more interested in the benefits of leadership, the notoriety that came from it, the power that came from it. And my leadership was a function of the fact that out of everybody in my circle, I was typically the best speaker. I was typically the kid, even in school, who I'm going to explain things to the teacher in a way that nobody else could. I'm going to say things to people in conflict that none of my other friends could say. I could explain beef in a way that no matter what it is, and that's the thing about gifts and talents, they don't just go away, depending on the context. No matter where I was a leader. But as I've gotten older and I've gone through situations where, because of my lack of understanding of what leadership is and was, I used my abilities to hurt people. I've seen the impact of what a structure like a church or a religious organization, because of things I've done, I've seen the deep pain it can cause people. It has caused me to become more of a servant leader in the manner of Jesus. Servant leader in the way that Dr. King tried to be, modeled upon Mahatma Gandhi, who in many ways, even though I believe he was Hindu, a lot of his philosophy was related to Jesus. He that is greatest among you is not the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. That person is the least, but they are the greatest because they gave up so much. So my philosophy has shifted from leadership being about me, and it's shifted to leadership really being about my constituents, the people that I'm called to serve. And so that means there are a lot of things that I could do, but as a leader I don't do, because is it expedient, and I'm passionate about that, and I'm not perfect in that, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. Think about Jesus. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and every significant historian in the world agrees that Jesus actually existed. There's no debate in the world of history. It might be a debate in popular culture, but serious historians don't debate Jesus. In fact, there's more evidence about, as far as what I'm hearing, there's more evidence that supports the existence of Jesus than it is for the existence of Aristotle or Socrates. And check that, and if I'm not right about the names, it's something like that. The bottom line is, the most famous person in history, that's what he is. Before he dies, he gets on his knees and he washes his disciples' feet. And then he says, a servant will never be above his master. So if Jesus washes his disciples' feet, then who am I to ever be a totalitarian leadership? And that's deep too. We could go there about how the philosophy of leadership, how much it can impact the world. I mean, authoritarianism is rising in the world right now in a way that we've not seen since the early 20th century. And America is trying to get back that place of influence that it had after World War II. And it's really all about leadership. Can they do that? Yeah.
Yeah, be interesting. The stuff in Ukraine is...
Yeah, isn't that deep?
Some stuff going on in the world. I've read some stuff we can talk about off camera. But I'm curious in terms of leadership and things, again, as a spiritual leader, a church leader, what role can the church play in the redevelopment of Detroit?
Ooh, that is a fascinating question. These are, podcasts like this are difficult because you're asking a super layer question and they really need time to kind of develop. But let me see, can I answer that? What role can the church play in the redevelopment?
Or how do you see your church playing a role? Not just the church. How's the art playing a role in the redevelopment?
Well, let me back up. I love the question because I think it does speak to one's philosophy of church and what a church is and what a church is not. And I submit to you that the church, to the extent that you can call it that, whether it's the evangelical church, the Catholic church, the Orthodox church, however you want to define it, I often find that in my experience with church, I've been in a church culture all of my life, that churches have a messianic complex that I think actually gets in the way of their ability to help the world around them. What do I mean by that? Churches, instead of looking at themselves like a cog in the world that is empowered by the greatest power, the power in the world, which is the power of God, churches start thinking that they are God. And so as a result of that, I don't have any obligation to the community around me. I don't understand the issues that my community is dealing with or the people in my church are dealing with because I think that in some way it's the church's fault that these people are dealing with these things. Some people may say, well, all right, how can I have a church in a community, but all the poverty is around it? As if the church really has the power in of itself to change that. I think it's a flaw in thinking. The church we're the preservers of the earth in a sense, but the culture is the culture. The world is the world. Our role is to do everything we can to support the people of a community, to give everything we can to help them, but understanding that the church could go to hell, the world could go to hell in a handbasket, and it's not our fault. And what's happening in Ukraine right now, can you blame that on the church? Some people say, yeah, because in the Orthodox Church in Russia, they're backing it. They're calling it basically like a holy war. But what about the Orthodox Church in Ukraine? Could they stop it? Like when bombs start being dropped, what is the church going to do? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think when you talk about what is the role of the church in the redevelopment of Detroit, I think it starts with the church understanding that it should not be the political power that I think we've typically tried to play. And I think we just need to try to help people. At the end of the day, we need to feed the hungry, we need to clothe the naked. Are there political implications with that? Of course there are. But we need to be the church, which is to help people get from earth to glory. And again, this is a lot of unpacking I could do. I'm giving you a 10,000-foot view. 1, 2, how is my church doing that? We're doing everything we can to serve our community right around us. I'm not trying to take over the city. I'm not trying to take over the world. That's Jesus died for the world. I didn't. And so this messianic idea that I'm going to save Detroit, no, you're not. No church is going to save a city because the problem didn't start with me. And we're in a pluralistic society. Not everybody will ever be Christian. It's not going to happen. And then do I want a world like that? And then what did the world look like the last time we tried to make everybody Christian? It was called the Crusades. And we killed a lot of people. So I challenge pastors with this though, and it makes them very uncomfortable. They don't like me. Like, somebody said to me one time, well, what does Detroit look like? Some white pastors asked me this. What does Detroit look like if the church is at full capacity, at full strength? I said, if the church ever gets to full strength, they're going to kill it. That's what they did to Jesus. That was the church at full capacity. They crucified him. Jesus never came to be a political leader. He came to help people within that system. Now, does that mean we don't have an obligation to the world around us? No, I'm not saying that. But understand our mission is different. So, play your role in helping your community, but don't try to take it over. Don't try to take over the world. We're in the world, but not of the world. What you talking about?
I have a flip side to that question. What role can a law firm play in helping develop community?
So that's a totally different subject, right?
Yeah.
Because a law firm is, in a way, a church isn't. A law firm, or a business for that matter, but let's talk about a law firm. A law firm is much more a function of the culture of the society around it than a church is. There's no ideological, there's no mission in a law firm in the way that it is with the church, where the church is simply an agent for its master, who is Jesus. A law firm is a group of lawyers. It's a group of professionals who, because of their obligation, the oath that they take, they're obligated to help people to the extent that they can. And so we should use our legal gifts. We should use the influence that we have as lawyers to impact the world around us. And so we can be much more activist in a way that I think churches maybe should not. And let me be clear about what I'm saying, because this is a bit nuanced. I'm not saying that. I think what Dr. King did with the church is what the church should be. But notice, once his philosophy became to be much more like the gospel, which was we shouldn't have poverty at all, which was I'm going to attack capitalism itself, what happened? Right? They killed him. The church speaks truth to power. The church is John the Baptist. The church is Jesus. Law firms don't have to be like that. They can be, but they don't have to be. The church should be the center of change and transformation. It just in a different way, for a missional base. If nobody hears me, I'm going to say it. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas I think now churches are like, well, if this hurts my membership, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do it. If I can't save everybody, I haven't done anything. It's not about that. Preach the word, be instant, in season, out of season. So law firms, I think, should definitely use their power to help the world around it. So, it's kind of a truism. But as it relates to the church, which I'm more passionate about, understand your role, play your role, and understand that even if nobody listens, you should tell that truth. But at the same time, don't be discouraged if you don't see it all happen in your lifetime. Again, podcasts are difficult. I really want to unpack this. What's the next one?
I get it. No, the next one is just, again, thing that fascinates me about you is being a man of the world, a man of God. How do you balance man's law versus God's law?
So I think I told you this story before. My Aunt Maddie, her name was Maddie Bell White Johnson. God rest her soul. Family moved up here from Amory, Mississippi in the 30s. And she was my grandfather's sister. His name was Boyd White Sr., Boyd Henry Allen White Sr.
That would explain why you're the third.
Yep.
Okay.
And I like to say those names because ancestry is important to me. And so all my family that's watching. She died in around 2009, something like that. I had a cousin that came from New York, and brilliant cousin. He said, "Cousin, you're a pastor and a lawyer." He said, "That's a problem for me." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I never know if you lying or telling the truth." So yeah, there's always this tension, between the two, and not because of lying per se, but because just the spirits of the worlds are different between the world of the law, which is very antinomian, which is anti-law. Interestingly enough, lawyers, we become very good at being advocates for the law, but I don't know that in our own lives, I think we become very rationalistic and relativistic, and what's true for you is true for me. Whereas ministers and preachers are much more adherents to absolutism, absolute truth, So that could be a conflict right there. But, at the end of the day, the scripture says, what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? So there's a hierarchy there, that the saving of my soul is greater than the winning of the world. And so that sets my ethic as a lawyer, that no matter what, I'm going to follow the law of God in my heart. Now, for some people, that means different things. For some people, that means that they won't represent a person that doesn't follow or agree with their religious beliefs. That's not what I'm saying, because we're not in church. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to do a job, and representing a person doesn't mean that I'm violating my own religious beliefs to do that. In fact, it should support that, because the scripture says that this is how you'll know you're my disciples, by the love that you show one towards another. So from a love standpoint, anybody that needs help, I'm obligated to help them. That's my ethic, right? But, I remember a case I had once where as a prosecutor, and this did come down to preparation, but I ended up doing the right thing. We realized in the middle of a case that a defendant was innocent. My officer in charge told me that with respect to the charges that were levied against this defendant, while this defendant was on the stand, the officer in charge bent over to me and said, I believed her, with respect to whatever her defense was. And so I stood up in court and said, I dismiss the charges. I could have lost my job for that. But to me, I needed that woman to know that you were believed. I needed that woman to know that there is justice somewhere, that this isn't all a fiction. I mean, this was going to have a real impact on her life, her livelihood. She could have went to prison, So that was a moment where my ethic conflicted with my job in a way. But a greater lesson was about preparation. Had I looked at that file the right way before the trial and gotten the approval I needed to have that case dismissed, I never would have been in that moment. Yeah. So the real question is the extent to which your preparation will keep you out of those moments of conflict between your ethic and whatever job that you're trying to do. Hope I'm being clear. This podcast is difficult.
I love it. I love kick. Yeah, we need to do a deep dive.
Yeah, we got to do a deep dive. My mind doesn't really work as sound bites. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's all good. No, so hold on. I'm sorry. I've got working with new technology here.
Doing a great job.
One of the questions I have is, again, I think that having known you for so long, it seems as though you've taken a rather circuitous route in your life to get where you are now.
Uh-huh.
And the question I'm saying is, how would you say your story speaks to concepts of perseverance and dedication and, like say, vision? You talked about vision earlier, having a vision for your life or finding a vision for your life, because you started in education.
Right.
You went to law school. You didn't, you wasn't like you came in to admissions like, hey, I want to go to law school. That came to you later as well.
Actually it didn't. And
Okay.
I hear your question. I think, again, back to preparation. When I graduated from Michigan, my father died in 2001.
Okay.
I graduated from Michigan in 2002. My goal was always to go to law school.
Okay.
Funny story, my dad was in the hospital in 2000. I had just transferred into the theater school at Michigan. I went to go see him in the hospital, and he was in the hospital bed. His doctor walked in. My dad said, hey, this is my son, I'm telling you about. The doctor said, oh, yeah, you the young man your father told me was at Michigan, right? Yeah, yes, sir. I'm at Michigan, What are you studying, young man? I'm studying theater. Now, my dad, when I walked into the room, was kind of weak, kind of laying in the bed. When I told that doctor I was studying theater, my daddy sat up in that bed. Tell him what you're really doing. I'm going to law school, So that was always my plan. But when my father died, my motivation for living in many ways was taken away from me. It was gone. And so coming to admissions was me trying to find myself again. But it was a necessary finding because I wasn't ready to go to law school. I did not know how to maximize my own talent. And I didn't realize it until I started working with the children that we were admitting to Michigan. I started looking at the applications of straight A students. And I remember that statistic we often talked about, that the more a student was involved extracurricularly, the better they did with their grades. Blew my mind. Oh, this is really about time management. In the way that everybody had been trying to tell me, but because I was so arrogant as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, because I'm so talented, I didn't see that. It was there I got a revelation of how to do well in school from working with those students. And then around that time, I got married. I was married in 2000. We got married on the same weekend, I think.
Yeah.
May 29th.
May 24. Yeah, May 29th.
May 29th,
yes.
2004. And
Same day.
Right. And so my wife was an integral part in helping me to get the desire to go to law school again. My friends, so there were a lot of people that helped me get to where I am today. So yes, it was a circuitous path, but one that was definitely supported by the world around me. My pastor, Marvin Miles, International Gospel Center, he really helped me when my father died. Stepped in as a father in many ways to give me that kind of guidance I needed. My big debate at that time was, should I never go to law school? Maybe I should just go to Bible school. And he really encouraged me to go to law school. You have one opportunity to do this really in your life. So you'll be able to provide for your family in a different way than pastors do. So my story is really about the greatest lesson I learned from my father, which was listen. My father's, if he were here today, he would tell you that some of his greatest failures was due to the fact that he didn't listen to people. So at the end of his life, we often talked about that scripture that said that wisdom is found in the multitude of many counselors. So you're looking at me today in this position because of people I listen to, like people like you, You often would pull me to the side, just even after freshman. We used to have these sessions at Michigan where we would speak to all of this, the students coming in, and I'll be in there preaching, I'll be going in, and Fiodas would be sitting in the back. Why are you so loud? It's information, boy, not inspiration, So he really helped me, and I listened to that because I didn't have anybody. Erica Sanders at Michigan, I remember I came to work the first day, I had my do-rag on. She said, boy, you cannot wear a do-rag to work. It's like, why not? Just so many people, that it took a lot of people to get me here. And so if anybody could take anything from my life, it's find good people that love you and listen to them. They're not going to lie to you, And that's something I try to teach my children. Other than that, my life's a basket case. I wouldn't be sitting here. You know what I'm saying? Because whatever I provide in my ability to articulate, I really can struggle in my ability to guide my own life because that can be blinding. You're led by this desire for affirmation that you get as an early child. As a kid, you get up the first time and speak. Everybody's like, oh, you're amazing. That can be blinding, And I think a lot of talented people struggle with that. But again, a lesson from my dad, close your eyes. Don't be led so much by your own ego. And listen, I almost left my job last year for a very interesting opportunity. And just the counsel of many people helped me to see that it wasn't the right thing for me. It's right for somebody else, but it wasn't right for me, and that's how I live my life.
That's cool.
One more thing on that. I know we got to go, but so again, I'm really struggling with trying to get my thoughts out because I think in many layers. But there's a scripture that says, who can discern his own errors and ways? Who can discern his own errors and ways? Let the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. It's Psalms 19. That's a deep scripture because it speaks to our inability as humans to see ourselves. Yeah. This is a revelation I got years ago, and now there's some other ministers that talk about this, but I didn't get this from anybody. This is what I saw, that as human beings, we're not designed to see ourselves. We're designed to see everything around us. And even the times in life that we've seen ourselves have only been false pictures of ourselves, mirrors, pictures, all reproduced images. You will never see yourself the way I see you. This is the greatest lens on the planet. I can see you in 3 dimensions. You really don't know what you look like. You really don't. Because of your inability to see yourself in 3 dimensions in one point, and not just in 3 dimensions in terms of your physical, but from a spiritual standpoint, I can see you spiritually. I can see you. Well, how do I survive in a world where I can't see myself? You have to surround yourself with people whose perspective of you that you trust. That's how you see yourself. Just like you do in the natural, you get the best mirrors you can find. Because some mirrors are terrible. Some mirrors that have me looking 6'3", have my hair, full head of hair. You can get whatever you want these days, especially now with automated with artificial intelligence. You can get you a fake mirror, you know, or like on the cell phones now, you can do certain things to the image that you see of yourself to make it the way you want it to be, but that's not you. And so you're going out into a world projecting an image that you think looks a certain way, but it doesn't. That's a bad position to be in. You ever seen a person who is always wearing clothes that don't fit? Yes. The belly is cut tight under here, you know. Pants is way up in, they don't, or too much perfume on, too much makeup on, you know. They're out of touch with themselves, and that's a hard thing sometimes because of the way we change as we get older. And that's another challenge I'm learning. Getting older, I don't look the way I looked when I was 20 years old. So who am I now? The extent to which I'm able to understand who I am for real is contingent upon who I put around me. So for those of you that are listening, make sure you strive to have great people around you. Those of you who are leaders, you talk about leadership, starting a business, make sure you find great people to be around you and listen to wisdom. That's what I would say.
Oh, yeah, no. Company you keep. I got a friend who used to always tell me, you hang around with 9 millionaires, you'll be the 10th one. But if you hang out around with 9 bums, you'll be the 10th one. So.
Or you may decide after hanging around those 9 millionaires that you're not willing to go on the rat race that they went on to get that because you've seen what their lives really are. So either whether you decide to become a millionaire or you decide to say, I don't want to be, it's a different place than a person who's not around them at all. Yeah. Well, because what a lot of us are doing, we're chasing after things and we don't even know what's at the end. Like I tell people all the time, I worked in a law firm when I was in high school, but I still didn't know what lawyers did. I did not know what a lawyer did. If I had really known that lawyering is really about project management, that's really what it is. You would be an amazing lawyer because you're an amazing project manager. You know, that's not my natural skill set. It never has been. I'm a performer. I'm an in-the-moment performer. Lawyering is about your ability to keep a case on schedule. It took everything in me to learn that. I don't know that I would have done this. I didn't know what I was getting at the end of that law degree. And so it's not just surrounding yourself with people, it's listening to the people that are around you and then making a decision. As opposed to what's happening for many of us in life, you get a box, open it up, and you ain't even know. Like, oh, God, I didn't know that was in that box, and I don't even want it. How many marriages are like that? Uh-oh, we getting deep today. What you talking about? Huh? Marriages. You didn't know what was on the other end of that. And I don't mean sexually, I mean psychologically, spiritually, emotionally. I don't know what's in the box. And everybody else around you is telling you, don't open that box. So, you got me talking.
Like you speaking to Johnny Depp today.
What you talking about? Johnny Depp's in a situation, right? Everything that glitters ain't gold. Yeah. I preached a message. See, now my thoughts are coming. I preached a message on Sunday, inconvenience yourself. Just because something is easy doesn't mean that it's good.
That's true. And
that's the spirit of our society. We want lives of ease, but this life of ease is stripping us of our humanity. You know, it's stripping us of our ability, even right now, to think critically. Even like the segmented podcast format strips deep thinkers of their ability to clearly express themselves. Think about that. Twitter right now, everything has to be in 35 characters. What if Socrates only had 35 words to express his brilliance? What if Dr. King had to do I Have a Dream in 35 words or less? Because the people he's listening to, their attention spans are so small that they won't listen to it. You know what happens? Now is what happens. Vladimir Putin is what happens because they've dumbed the world down so much that we don't even know what rights are. And that's the crazy danger of what's happening today. Well, to me, my opinion.
Again, I would say we know what rights are. We don't know what responsibilities are.
That too.
People don't buy into people don't buy into responsibility anymore. They don't think they're responsible for their fellow man.
Right.
And they only care about themselves.
Right.
But that's a hope. We're going to have to bring you back.
You do got to bring me back because the other thing with that is, so what steps into the vacuum that the individual leaves when the individual says, I'm no longer going to care about the world around me. I'm just going to worry about me. What steps into that? Because there's a vacuum that's created there. When you decide that you're not going to help your brother, you're just going to help yourself, who steps into that vacuum of power? Government. That's authoritarianism.
Yeah.
That's what's happening now.
Okay. Well, we're going to switch to our lightning round now. And this is a series of questions we ask all of our guests as a means of building a catalog and knowledge throughout and for our continuous listeners so they can hear the difference. But the first question is, how do you practice self-care?
Body Project is this program on YouTube where this guy and this woman from Australia take you through high-level, high-intensity workouts. But they do it in a way that's very reasonable. And it's very convenient, but it's still hard. So self-care for me starts with working out in a way that I can do it. And also self-care for me is a function of time I spend with my wife and my children. So I try to really commit to that. And then prayer. I'm not the best in terms of always praying the way that I should, but that's my ideal, and I go in and out of seasons with that. But ultimately, eventually, you're gonna find me back on my knees at some point. So self-care. Yep.
Okay. What are you listening to?
Dr. Anita Phillips is a brilliant therapist who's also a licensed minister out of Baltimore. And I've been listening to her brilliant podcast. It's called Walk in the Light. She's brilliant. I encourage everybody to listen to her. Dr. Anita Phillips.
What are you watching?
I'm rewatching Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Because I'm getting ready for the Dance with Dragons series that's coming out in September. I love Game of Thrones. I love the chess match that it is. And now, watching it again, Ned Stark really should have died. You know what I'm saying? For those of you that watch Game of Thrones, you understand what I'm talking about. Because he was an idiot.
He was an idiot.
He was an idiot.
What I loved about Game of Thrones is there's really no good guys and bad guys.
It's life, ain't it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
But I predicted, I posted it on Facebook today, I predicted that at the end there was going to be no king. I just didn't know how it was going to happen, but I said Dragonfire was going to melt that throne. There was going to be no throne. But they jacked up everything else with the ending, though. So,
still, have you read the books?
No, I started to read them. I just didn't. I just didn't have time, and then no, I didn't.
Yeah, I read all the books, man, and it's just.
Your books are better?
Yes.
Okay.
Way more detailed.
Okay.
And way more detailed, and yeah, he needs to hurry up and finish the last two books.
Yeah, Wins a Winner. Yeah, he got to finish that. Yeah.
But that is the next question. What are you reading?
I'm listening a lot more than reading right now. It's easier for me.
Okay, we're not going to split hairs, lawyer. Audio books are still books.
They are. Amen. But, yeah, they are. So I'm not reading a lot right now. A lot of my time is spent, my intellectual time, outside of what I do for the law, because that's always reading. Yeah. Like right now I'm reading the no-fault statute.
Okay.
And I encourage everybody in the state of Michigan, if you can, to get the highest level of personal injury protection coverage on your policy that you can, because the law is absolutely insane. And so you should opt into that and get the highest level of bodily injury coverage that you can. Free legal advice. I'm not your lawyer, but free legal advice. Because if a person who makes, if a person of means, you make $100,000 or more, let's say you have a business, if you get into a car accident, now the individual that you were in that car accident with can now come after you personally for your assets in the way that they could not before under the old No Fault Act. And I don't think people understand this at all. I'm thinking about, we're going to do something at my church about this to inform my church. So I've been reading the No Fault statute. So let's just say that. Because I have been reading that because it's terrifying. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you like to go out to eat in the city?
Chartreuse is a great restaurant on Dykema just because it's close. I work in the Rinsen. Babo is a restaurant over on Woodward, actually 4 doors down from Chartreuse. I love that place. So let's just say those 3 places. We're starting to go out a lot more. You know, I think we talked about this before. For me, growing up in Detroit, downtown was like a place I wouldn't really want to go with my wife. You know what I'm saying? She didn't want to be involved with nonsense. You know, I'm one of my phrases to a lot of people is, "I grew up here. I'm from here." You know what I'm saying? Don't talk to me like I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm from here. But from here is a lot different now. You know, we went out to Bakersfield with my sisters. Shout out to Raina White, who's on Broadway. Got a show coming out, Something Like It Hot, in September. Excited for her. My sister Elena White, big-time photographer. My sister Cynthia Yvette White doing her thing over at Quicken Loans and Full Bloom Media. So we went out for my sister's birthday to Bakersfield, and it was a much different Detroit than the one I grew up in. I'm like, if they down here, then me and my wife could come downtown, you know, and be cool. So it's like I was in Ann Arbor almost. Like, where are we right now? White people out smoking weed in the middle of the night. Like, where's the house park? I didn't know where I was. You know what I'm saying? What up, though? Be White in the building.
Where's a friend of yours is coming to town? What is something they have to do while they're here?
I've been so blessed by being a part of the Leadership Detroit cohort. Shout out to all of my Leadership Detroit classmates. We don't say we're the best class ever. We leave that for the lesser classes. We're the greatest class ever. We are the Muhammad Ali of Leadership Detroit classes. And if you know, you know. We were at the African American History Museum 2 weeks ago for a session. And that is the place that I would encourage all of my friends to go and visit when they come to the city. It is a phenomenal exhibit for the slavery exhibit is phenomenal. And I've been to D.C. Detroit's is better. It's a bit smaller, but it's more intense. So I would definitely encourage them to visit that. Yeah.
Okay, visit Charles H. Wright. And our last question for you is, where can we find you?
You can find me, you can find my church on Instagram. I don't market myself a lot through the church because I don't want the church to be based around my personality. And so you won't see you won't see me like Puff Daddy and Bad Boy. You won't see me in the videos. We like the death row of churches. You know what I'm saying? I'm behind the scenes, you know. Definitely the pastor. But if you want to find my church, it's the Ark Detroit. And we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. So check us out that way. We have a website, arkdetroit.org, but it is still in development. It's not where I want it to be yet. You can find me that way. If you're looking for a great lawyer, I work at a full-service law firm at Dykema. And so if you're a business in this area and you're looking for great legal counsel, you can find me at dykema.com. If you're looking for a great young trial lawyer, you can find me at dykema.com. So that's how you find me. And shout out to everybody at Dykema in the building.
Well, thank you for coming out again, boy. We really enjoyed having you. We really appreciate you taking the time to come back. I'm personally really proud of you, my brother.
Thank you.
And happy for you. And it was really nice meeting your son over there. It's cool. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Boyd White III, pastor, lawyer extraordinaire. Thank you for listening to the DDP. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, subscribe, and drop us a chat. Drop us a line. Tell us how we're doing, what you think of the show. And until next time, we will see you again. Thank you for listening to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center, and you can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, review, and subscribe. This podcast is directed and produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Taylor Henniger, with writing contributions by James Neely and Leah Allen. Thank you for listening.